Namaste yogis, this is Stephen from YogaWorks. Thank you for practicing. The theme today is our third part of our self-myofascial release. In the first part we had a look at the feet and the legs. Then we moved on to the hips and the back, and now we're doing the shoulders and the neck in this last part of our little mini series. You're going to need a foam roller, two balls, maybe that are taped together or sort of held together in a bag, it doesn't matter. And we'll probably be using a block. Yes, we will be using a block. So if you've got something similar that looks like it, you can get that. And as always, if you don't have the exact equipment, then just make it up. It's something that looks the same. A sturdy drinking bottle might replace the roll, or even a rolled up yoga mat. And then for the balls, there's all kinds of different balls that will also be a good start. Tennis ball, a cricket ball, a golf ball. So whatever you've got is going to be useful, even if it's just one. Now the shoulders and the neck, I just want to show you the 2 points that we'll be working with in a moment. And the first one, I'll just turn around so you can see it a little bit better. The first one is, if you find the ridge of your shoulder blade, that's this bony part that goes from the outside edge of your shoulder down towards the spine. And if you follow it towards the spine until you just fall off, and then you go a little bit higher. And there's a sort of a softer part you can dig into that sometimes feels a bit sensitive. That's your levator scapula. It runs up into the neck here and often causes problems. If you have a frozen shoulder or you have trouble looking to the side, that's often that guy. So that's our first point that we'll be targeting. I'm showing you now so you can more easily find it later. And then the other one is if you follow the ridge of the shoulder blade, but this time more towards the outer shoulder, and then you go a little bit down and you feel all the way on top of the shoulder blade and under the armpit to the side. There's a whole lot of points. Even if you dig down with your fingers, you're going to be feeling some sensation, can be quite sensitive. So all of this area is a good one to get into. That's the rotator cuff muscles that control the rotation and the stability of your upper arm bone. Okay, so now that you know what we'll be looking for, let's get started. Grab the two balls that are taped together, or if you don't have two, then you can do one side at a time. And the first one will be the levator scapula, the one that I showed you first. So come to lie with, just find the inner edges of your shoulder blades and then just roll until the balls are just above that. And if it's uncomfortable to keep the head lifted, then just place a block underneath. And you may not feel a lot just yet, but now lift the hips up so more weight is going down onto those points. And then if you don't feel a lot just yet, that's fine. Just lift the arms over the head. And now this, for me, is the best way to get into this. You can shift side to side a little bit, maybe up and down a little bit. We just make small movements around that point. And feel for those balls underneath you to dig into that soft tissue there, the top inner part of the shoulder blades. And then if you're moving, just be still, let the arms rest overhead, let the hips bridge up, unless if it's too much, then lower the hips down. And take a moment. And then staying here, you can start to move the arms around, so you can circle them around to your hips and then overhead. And by doing this, we are pinning the skin and the outer layers down on the balls, but moving the muscles underneath. So to improve the gliding of the different layers of muscle and fascia, the connective tissue, over each other. You can change the direction here. You can even cross over if that feels good. And you can really make any movements that you like. Sometimes it's nice to stretch your arms overhead and bend the elbows. Or it could be nice to open and close into sort of cactus arms. And then set the hips down, release the arms to where they're comfortable, and just rest on the balls here for a moment. And then lift up. So for this one, grab your 2 balls. It also works with 1 ball, but usually I like to keep both of them together. One then works as more of a support, and then one is more doing the pressure point. So I'm going to be lying on my left side, positioning the balls on just a little bit under the armpit and a little bit more towards the shoulder blade. And in the beginning, just roll a little bit up and down. Just start to feel where some tender points might be, or where it feels good to just roll around. Also good to go forward and back with your chest. And when you feel a good spot that feels like it needs a bit more attention, then rest there. If your head is uncomfortable, then just grab a block or something to rest it on. And a few times, roll the arm in and out. That's a specific movement for those muscles in the rotator cuff that are now pinned down under that ball. Or they're moving while the ball is pinning down the outer layers. That's more precise. And then just rest for a moment, release the movement. Take a slow breath. And then let's find a second point. So you can roll a bit more forward, a bit more back, a bit more up, a bit more down. And just try to find another point that feels useful. And maybe grab your pillow again, rest here for a moment. Some of these points in the outer shoulder can feel quite sensitive. And then if it feels beneficial to you, you can move the arm into internal and external rotation. Just a few times and then release. Rest down for another moment. Slow breath. And then lift up. And let's take that to the second side. I'll turn around so you can see better. I'm lying on the right side with my right outer shoulder on the balls. It's actually the back one that's more pressing into the points that I'm looking for in this case. But if you have one ball, then that's also going to work. Maybe rest the head. You can move a little bit up and down, and a little bit forward and back. I find those movements quite helpful here until you find something interesting. None of this should be really painful, but sometimes the sensation might be quite intense. You can always lessen it by putting a bit less weight on the ball. And then maybe a bit of movement, if that feels good for you. Internal and external rotation. Any movement is good, but this one is quite specific for this area. And then rest for a moment, release the movement. And then let's find a second point. You can try a bit higher up or a bit lower down. And you can try lowering the chest or lifting slightly until You feel something that you can work with. Hold that. And if you want to move the arm, just maybe 4 or 5 times. In and out. And release that, just rest here for a moment, slow breath in. Slow breath out. Slowly come up off the ball. Let's place the blocks off to the side. And now we're going to need the foam roller. So place the foam roller towards the top half of your mat. And then lie on it with your upper back. Let's start off in let's say the upper part of the shoulder blades, and then hold the back of the head with your hands, and rest the head back. Just take a moment here to drape your spine over the roll. And then you can lift your hips a little bit and just go up and down just a few centimeters each way. It's not a big movement at all. Keep your breath soft, keep your weight resting down on the roll, and just feel all these muscles in the upper back, and the back of the shoulders. And then when you find a good spot, you can set the hips down. And what I like to do here is little side bends, side to side. You can also twist if that feels helpful. For me, the side bends are the most effective in getting those tissues to move and to move the spine in different directions in the upper back. And then keeping your core braced, so you're firming up your abdomen, start to move your head forward and back. So you're doing a mini crunch, so to speak. But as you go back, you don't go into a massive back bend with the lower back. So you're trying to keep that back bend only in the upper part of the spine. There's less movement potential there than lower down in the lower back, especially for back bends. But we're trying to encourage the chest to open. And then roll a little bit further down, and then again go up and down a few times. You might have to wiggle around just to find that spot. So now more towards the lower part of the shoulder blades, you could say. Almost just above the bra strap for the ladies. And then hold that. Little side bends or sideways movements. And then again, mini crunches, but keep the core braced as you lean the head back. So you don't want the lower back to help you with your back bend. You want the upper spine to drape over that roll. And then for a moment, just relax back. I actually like to reach my arms over the head. And this time you can let the lower back also arch and go into back bend. If the head doesn't touch down easy, then just support it with the hands or slide your block under the head, it's fine. If your head does touch down, you can stretch up and over with your arms for another breath or so. And then release that. Let's come halfway up and just to roll onto the left side. And now we're targeting the lats, a big muscle that goes from under the armpit all the way down to the lower back. And lie down with your armpit over the roll and your left arm over the head. You can either support your head in the hands, or my favorite is actually to just extend the arm and then roll forward and back. Just that. Forward and back. Nice simple movements. And you'll feel all these ropey muscles and the tendons that connect the muscles from torso to the upper arms. You'll feel them press down on that roll, and by doing this, we're sort of untangling any knots there or tissues that have become a bit rigid or clumped together. And then just be still for a moment, let your full weight just relax down. Take a slow breath. And now keep this, so the roll is not going to move, but we're just going to roll onto our left side. So I'm turning my upper body so it's about 45 degrees to the mat. And now there's just more weight in the front of the left shoulder and into the side of the chest here. So you can rest your head onto the hands and rest onto the roll like that. So now we're getting more into the front of the shoulder and the pecs, the chest muscles, which understandably, with our modern lifestyles, sitting a lot, driving cars, working at desks, this area needs a little bit of attention and opening. It's often too tight and restricted for most people. And then slowly come up. Let's swap to the second side. First the lats, so we're lying on our side. On the right side. Right arm can be on the elbow with the head in the hands, or can just reach overhead. And then we're just rolling forward and back. You can roll quite far forward and quite far back, so you're getting all the angles of those ropey tissues in the armpit, in the back of the armpit. And just picture all those attachments that connect your arm to your torso. And also, if you feel a bit restricted in poses or movements that have your arms over the head, so think downward dog, think wheel pose, think handstands, then this work will definitely help to create a bit more space there. Just relax for a moment, rest down onto the roll. And then we're turning onto our front side, so place the front of that shoulder and the side of your chest on the roll, and I like to just rest my head on the hands and rest the full upper body weight on that roll. And just dig into those tissues at the front of the shoulder and the chest. Couple of breaths here. We don't need to hold each pose for very long. 30 to 60 seconds is enough. But we need to be quite precise, not just rolling around randomly. And then slowly lift back up. Nice. Now, next we're moving on to the triceps. So place the roll towards the top edge of the mat. If you don't have a roll, you can pretty much do the same with a block here for the triceps. Or even with the two balls, that's also going to work. And then lie on your belly. And you can place the roll a bit to the right so that your right tricep can rest on it. And then in the beginning, we're just rolling a bit forward and a bit back. So I'm reaching that arm to the front and I'm pulling it in. And then when I find a juicy spot, I'm holding there, and then I can turn the arm inwards and outwards. So turn the palm, but actually it's the whole arm that's turning. There's 3 heads of the triceps. A bit more to the inside and to the outside. So we're trying to hit all these angles. And a couple of times, bend and straighten your arm. And I'm finding a second spot. I'm going to go a little bit more towards the elbow, and you can again roll in and roll out. And bend and straighten. Good. Second side, left triceps on the block. You can choose how much weight. If you stay a little bit higher up, that arm will become quite light. Or if you really lie down on it, then there's more weight on it, so you can self-regulate. If it's way too much, you can sort of be in a half sphinx pose to take some weight off. And then the same thing can work with the block as well. And I'm first rolling a little bit forward, a little bit back. All these are small movements, but we are choosing the exact spot that we want to be. So we're getting quite skillful with the body and how it functions. And when you find a good spot, roll in, roll out, roll in, roll out. Sometimes you don't feel much at all, and sometimes you feel plenty. You can even get quite sensitive in some spots. So don't push too hard. Rather return often to this practice, doing what you can, rather than trying to get everything done in one single session. It's not going to work. And then I'm choosing a second spot. I'm getting a little bit closer to the elbow, roll in and out. There's a nice trigger point there just above the elbow in the beginning of the triceps, which you might feel right now as you bend and straighten a few times. And then just for a moment, place the roll or your block in the middle and just rest the head down, bend your elbows and push the elbows down a little bit onto the roll. And then release that. For the last one, we're moving on to the neck, and we'll be using our yoga block for this. If you don't have a yoga block, then the balls or even the roll will also work. But I quite like the sharper edge of the block for this neck one. So lie back and place the head, actually the edge of the skull, just on the edge of that block. So the neck is free, it's off the block, and I'm just under the base of the skull. And then you can straighten the legs or bend the knees and just rest back for a moment. Let the full weight of the head rest on the block. You might already feel a really nice pressure point there in the base of the skull. And then we'll turn the head as far as it can go to the left. So check where your nose is pointing and then go halfway back between neutral, where we started, and the maximum rotation. Now you should be on that ropey muscle on the left side of the neck. And then just nod your head yes for a few times. A little bit up, a little bit down. And then no. Move your head side to side just a little bit, so going from the inside to the outside of that strong muscle supporting the head. And then rotate your nose to make little circles. Tiny, tiny circles. And release the head back to center. Second side, turn your head maximum to the right and then go halfway back. So you're on that ropey muscle on the right side of the neck now. Take a moment. And keeping the weight of the head back under the block, just nod your head yes a couple of times. No. Tiny, gentle movements and little circles. Return to the center and then just remove your block and take a moment to feel the after effects of this practice. Just rest the shoulder blades down, relax your upper back. Can you feel the spaciousness in the front of the shoulders into the chest? Can you feel a sense of lightness, freedom around the neck and even into the brain? Everything might just feel a little bit lighter and more open. I'd recommend to come back to this practice often, even if you just pick one or two of these movements, or you do a little bit after work, or before you go to bed. If you have a few more minutes, then feel free to rest a little bit longer in your Shavasana. Or if it's time to go, then thank you so much for practicing with me. This is a good time to get into your training or do a yoga class or to head off to bed. It can feel quite nice and restful, and I hope to see you again soon. Thank you for practicing. Namaste.